My wife, Emily, and I lived with her mother, Margaret, for a while. Emily introduced me to her mother, and Margaret tried to pretend that she didn't know anything about me, but I could see that she didn't like me. I already seemed troubled. No matter what I did or said, it was always wrong in her eyes. I couldn't please this second mom, no matter how hard I tried. She complained that I didn't make enough money and didn't love her precious daughter, Emily, enough. I got tired of it and even started thinking about divorce. The tension between us became unbearable at times, and I felt like I was constantly walking on eggshells in my own home. Emily eventually agreed to move out of Mom's house, but Margaret argued that it would be hard for her to live alone in such a large apartment. Besides, in her eyes, I was just free labor. She often mentioned how difficult it would be to manage the housework, and I realized she was trying to convince us to stay. One evening, Emily and I were lying in bed after making love, and she said, "I think I understand why Mom is always so angry." "Why?" I asked, curious as to what she meant. "Well," she said, "she's still quite young, and she doesn't have a husband. And we amuse ourselves here every night." "That's true," I admitted, starting to realize what she was getting at. Emily sighed. "She's lonely, and maybe that's why she's so upset all the time. We could help her find a man." Or she stammered and looked at me slyly, mischief gleaming in her eyes. "Or what?" I asked, feeling a mixture of confusion and intrigue. "Why bring a stranger into the house when we already have someone here?" said Emily, laughing. "I mean, you could help her." I was taken aback. "Are you serious? You want me with your mom?" Emily smiled. "It's just strengthening the family bond. Imagine how much happier we'd all be if we were a real close-knit family." She kissed me gently and then added, "Just think about it. It could be the solution to all of our problems." A few weeks later, Emily had to go out of town for 2 weeks, leaving me alone with Margaret. I happened to walk into her room one morning as she was changing her clothes, and I couldn't help but notice that she still looked very much like a woman, not too thin, with curves in all the right places. There was some attraction in her body that I hadn't allowed myself to notice before. She looked at me in surprise, and something switched between us. Maybe it was the loneliness. Maybe it was what Emily had said, but I pulled closer to her, and my heart raced. I reached out my hand, and to my surprise, she didn't push me away. Instead, she looked into my eyes and let out a small sigh, her body relaxing, as if she'd been waiting for this moment. From that moment on, the relationship between Margaret and I changed. It was as if she had been asleep all this time, and now she was awake. She stopped wearing anything modest around the house, and we started spending more time together, every chance we got in the kitchen, in the yard, even in the barn. It was as if she was waiting for someone to make her feel alive again, and that person turned out to be me. Her demeanor softened, and she seemed happier, more peaceful. It was as if a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. We developed a kind of routine. During the day, we behaved as if nothing had changed, but when we were alone, we let our desires take over. There was a thrilling mystery, the thrill of knowing that at any moment we could be caught. Margaret became more confident, and I found myself drawn to her in ways I hadn't expected. She was no longer just my mother-in-law. She was a woman who needed me, and I needed her too. When Emily returned, I wasn't sure what Margaret had told her, but Emily seemed happy. That night, she demanded a full accounting from me when, where, how many times. She smiled when I finished and said, "Well, now you have two women in your life. Do you think you can handle it?" Her eyes sparkled with joy, and I realized that she was really okay with everything that had happened. Thus began our strange new married life. We celebrated my reconciliation with Margaret by setting the table for a big dinner. Afterward, Emily called Mom into the bedroom, and together they made me their own. I never imagined my life would take this turn, but here I was, with two women who loved me in their own way, and I couldn't deny that part of me was savoring every moment. The dynamic between us was unlike anything I had ever experienced. There was love here, and a deep sense of connection that bound us together. As the weeks went by, the three of us settled into our new roles. Margaret became more affectionate, often finding little ways to show her appreciation, cooking my favorite meals, stroking my shoulders after a long day, or just sitting next to me as we watched TV. Emily, on the other hand, seemed to enjoy sharing me with her mother, and they both often teased me about my ability to keep up with them. There was an unspoken understanding between us, a bond that grew stronger every day. We even started taking small trips together, weekend trips to neighboring towns, where we could be free from prying eyes. During these trips, we laughed, loved, and forgot about the outside world. It was just the three of us, and in those moments, I felt truly happy. The closeness we shared was something impossible for me, and I knew that despite the unconventional nature of our relationship, I was exactly where I was meant to be. One evening, as we sat at the dinner table, Margaret raised her glass and said, "Here's to family, however strange it may be." Emily and I raised our glasses, and I couldn't help but smile. Life had taken an unexpected turn, but that turn had brought us closer together. And as I looked at the two women sitting next to me, I realized it couldn't have been any other way.